Want to go deeper with Lobbing Scorchers? You know, scratch under the surface, get down even dirtier than we already get? Become a YouTube member. Sometimes things just get a little too spicy, a little too weird, and a little too loose for the general public. And you know, the people to see that are YouTube members. We're talking about exclusive bonus videos, the podcast after show, exclusive written content, and little bits and pieces of information before the unwashed masses know about it. As a member, you not only get access to all of this amazing content, you get a badge next to your name and a slew of amazing emotes to use, not only in our live stream chat, but also in our comments section. And yes, we do have an emote for Jesus Ferreira, Go Snack, and Paul Rothrock. This is the best way to help keep us independent and keep us building out this crazy YouTube brand that we call Lobbing Scorchers. Hit the join button down below or hit the link in the top of our description if you're on mobile to join the ranks and become a Lobbing Scorchers YouTube member.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Lobbing Scorchers Under the Lights. Got a good show for you all lined up here tonight. We're going to have Sydney from Scarves and Spikes, an Atlanta United podcast, on in just a little bit to talk some Atlanta United, who the Seattle Sounders are playing on Saturday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Got some injury news and just other topics to discuss surrounding the Seattle Sounders and Major League Soccer. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. Hope you're all doing well out there and ready for this last league match that the Seattle Sounders play before League's Cup. So yeah, my plan is at the top of the show here, play some Brian Schmetzer sound while we wait for people to trickle in, and then bust out the lineup builder. Can go through it and see how we expect Seattle to line it up on Saturday. I think it's relatively straightforward, but with some of the injury news that we got today, still think it's worth busting her out and seeing how we think Seattle's going to line it up. And then aside from that, I was planning on letting you guys steer the ship a little bit. If you got topics, questions, observations, agendas, grievances, go ahead, drop them in chat, and I'll get to as many of those as I can to close it out. LobbingScorchers.com/LS. The road to 100 Sounder at Heart subs for us has slowed down a little bit. So if you want to support the show, that's a great way. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel. LobbingScorchers.com/sauce. You get the hot sauce. LobbingScorchers.com/archive. If you're getting your archive kits, use that link. And that's another great way to help support the show. We Noah and I dropped a podcast earlier today where we got his takes on the we had a good little debate on the Pedro de la Vega breakout and his takes on that in general, and more stuff on the Quakes game. So go check that on the audio platforms. Video's not up quite yet. Should be up tomorrow, but the audio's all out there. So go ahead and check that out as well. Bad sequels. Bought a jersey and got some hot sauce with your links. Do I win something now? You win being a great supporter of the show. Thank you for that, man. Bad sequels is a longtime supporter. We appreciate that a lot. And hopefully you enjoy the hot sauce. I think we've been getting good feedback on the hot sauce as far as what people think of the taste. So hopefully it's a good addition to your rotation. And congrats on the jersey as well. Those I still think even now that they've been out for like a couple weeks, these archive kits, not just Seattle's, like this is my favorite kit line that MLS clubs have released in a while. All just so good. But Seattle's are just money. De La Vega, Rothrock, or Kent, that's what we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. Our Atlanta United guest, Sydney from Scarves and Spikes, he's going to join around 8 o'clock in that vicinity. So we got some time to kill before we talk some Atlanta United. So if you guys have got stuff that you want to talk about, like Joe there, just go ahead, drop it in, and we'll talk about it. We're pretty much just hanging out until Sydney jumps on here, and I'm looking forward to talking some Atlanta United. I think it's common knowledge that I follow Atlanta United quite closely at this point, but it's always good to get the perspective of someone who's actually, on the ground covering the team day in, day out. But yeah, Joe, as Jake points out in the chat here, it did come out today that Paul Rothrock broke his hand at training and got surgery this morning, which sounded really bad when I heard it. I was like, oh, I mean, usually when I hear surgery, I'm like, that's probably at least a multi-week thing. But apparently it's a relatively minor situation. And Schmetzer said that he expects him to miss this game at Atlanta. But then past that, it's just pain tolerance, and he can theoretically just play with a cast. So that is good news, all things considered. And also the JP injury news. We talked about it on the podcast, but that is great news to hear. His ACL is actually not torn. I don't know if I've ever seen an ACL get retroactively diagnosed as untorn, but it's great. It's great. He's going to be back this season. I'm not exactly sure what the new timeline is. I imagine it's still like, at least a month or so with meniscus damage and the surgery that they did to clean that up. But that's just it's great for Seattle's depth chart. But it wouldn't have sat right if that's how JP went out, given everything he's given to the club and his role in bringing this team CONCACAF Champions League, and just like what a good sounder he's been, So great to hear that it sounds like he's going to be coming back this season and can shore up that area of the depth chart. I mean, how much have we been talking about how kind of dicey it's getting behind the first choice double pivot, and just sort of how they don't have that that skill set, that like for like Christian skill set without JP. They're still going to have to operate without that in the short term, but still good news to at least be getting him back. Reese is saying six weeks for JP, 6 weeks of minimal movement for Jordan, then recovery, then back on the pitch. Yeah, Jordan, I'm thinking of the timeline's more of like an 8-week situation, which really sucks. But he should theoretically be back like end of September, maybe, is how I was thinking of it. All right, we got actually Sydney on early, so that means that we can jump right into it. We'll do lineup builder, maybe the Schmetzer sound after we talk some Atlanta United. Sydney, if you can hear me, go ahead and give me the thumbs up, and I can bring you on the stage. All right, he's got me. Excited to welcome in tonight's guest, Sydney from Scarves and Spikes, and Atlanta United YouTube show and podcast that I listen to and watch. So excited to have you on there. Sydney, real quick before we do the intros, is it Hunt or is the E pronounced on the last name? I didn't.
A silent E.
Silent E. All right, Sydney Hunt. Sydney Hunt from Scarves and Spikes. Also one of the match night writers that I work with on the MLS Soccer editorial desk. Yeah. So worked with you a lot, but we've never actually gotten to chop it up about MLS and Atlanta United. And with Seattle and Atlanta playing this weekend, what better time than the present? But Sydney, thank you so much for joining us, sharing your Atlanta United knowledge with our audience. How are you doing this evening?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. You mentioned the MLSsoccer.com match night desk there. So I've been behind the behind the virtual desk for so many of busted up recaps with late goals and stoppage time and all of that. So
yeah.
I'm sure you remember most of those days. So yeah, good to be talking to you about Atlanta United, and we'll see what happens on Saturday when these two teams meet.
Yeah, excited to get into that in just a minute here. Before we do that, I do like to give our guests an opportunity to plug the work that they're doing. So if you want to tell our audience about, where you can find Scarves and Spikes, the type of stuff you guys do covering the club, and just anything at all about where to find you and the work that you do.
No, absolutely. So we're at scarvesandspikes.com. That's like our front porch to everything we do, written, podcast, audio, visual, all that good stuff. So we're live pretty much, not most nights, but we're live multiple times a week, before match days, the day after matches and all that. So go to Scarves and Spikes on YouTube, subscribe there, subscribe, to get all the Atlanta United coverage that you can ask for. And then I'm at SH Rice on X, SH Rice at bsky.social on Blue Sky, and then SidH.soccer on Instagram and Threads. And we collectively are Scarves, the letter and Spikes on X, and scarvesandspikes.com on Blue Sky. So that's my plug for everything that we do. Been a tough season for Atlanta United, but yeah, we're still here.
No, I mean, you guys do great work. You're one of my, I consider myself like honorary Atlanta United beat because, it started just with all the Seattle connections, like Gonzo Pineda, then of course, Ozzy Alonso, then to Chris Henderson and Garth Lagerway. So I think I was always going to be interested and in how things went for Atlanta United in that era where there were all these Seattle connections. I'm not gonna lie, like there is a little bit an element of like when a team goes in with into a season with really high expectations and spends a ton of money and then doesn't live up to that. There is something that's compelling about that, I think, for anyone from the outside. So that is part of why I follow it so closely. But no, I mean, I listen to your guys' stuff. I'm a 5 Stripes Final subscriber. I'm basically honorary Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it. But
Glad
I think,
to have you, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good place to start, because what I like to do to get the ball rolling on these interviews with our guests is kind of give my perspective on the club as a neutral outside observer, and then you can tell me if how I perceive it is accurate from the outside to how you see it on the day-to-day covering the team. And there are varying degrees of difficulty on this, when I was talking to Jesus Acevedo, our Houston Dynamo guest, situations like that I know a little bit less. This one's pretty easy for me because I have followed Atlanta so closely this season, but I'll hit you with it anyway, and then we can go from there. But basically, my perception of Atlanta United this season, like I said, it's a club that spent $30 million in attack this offseason between Emmanuel Latte Loth and Miguel Almiron. Latte Loth broke the MLS transfer record. Miguel Almiron was a very celebrated homecoming, obviously such a legendary player for the club, brought so much success to the club early in their MLS days. And that combined with the fact that it kind of felt like this was the first year of really being fully removed from the Boca Negra era.
Right.
That had me. I was fully bought into the hype. I called Almiron the best move any MLS club made all offseason because it felt so high percentage, and it felt like there's no way that can't pay off. Latte Loth, is he worth $22 million? I don't know, but he still seemed like a really good, really dynamic player who was pretty likely to thrive in MLS. Maybe I didn't give enough thought to the defensive side of it, and that Stan Gregerson can't stay on the field and stuff like that. But I was fully in on Atlanta United, like this being the resurgence year. I was pretty sure that it was going to happen. And I think it's fair to say that the season has gone off the rails. I could just, it's gone off the rails. And
just a little bit.
I guess what I'm more interested to hear your take on is I'll give my diagnosis of what's gone wrong, and then you can tell me what your diagnosis is. But what I see is a team that, first of all, I think the Gregerson thing is probably more has had more of an impact than people realize or talk about, because he looks like a really good player when he plays, but he hasn't played hardly at all, and that's kind of negatively impacted the backline continuity, and the defense just hasn't really been able to get on the same page. And then in attack, you have a situation where it's just underperforming DPs. Marinchuk has not really succeeded in MLS. The Almiron homecoming has not gone to plan, and all of this that I just mentioned has had a ripple effect on Latte Loth, who is clearly talented and is clearly a very good player, but is just kind of struggling to live up to that price tag, in large part, I think, due to the struggles of the rest of the team. Is all that accurate, or would you add or remove anything from that assessment?
No, you hit it right on the nail right on the head. And like you know, it's going into the season, like, oh my gosh, new coach Ronnie Dyla, who had won MLS Cup with NYCFC, new attacker Latte Lot, Miguel Mirona's back. You have so many pieces in place where Atlanta United, many people that would be an MLS Cup team, at the very worst, make MLS Cup. Now we all know, that's not going to happen at this point. But it's just frustrating to see this team not turn up year in and year out. Lack of service for Latte Lot. When he does get service, it's just an inability to finish like a 22 million striker should. Then you look at Kevin Denke in Cincinnati, you're like wishing, gee, he might have looked good in Atlanta United colors. So just kind of thinking about that too. Alexei Miranchuk, you mentioned it, just has vastly underperformed. And, the discussion about him was that he was going to be the next star number 10 for Atlanta United with respect to what Miguel Almiron has done at that number 10 spot in 2017 and 2018 with Joseph Martinez up top. So far, nothing close to what fans certainly expected, what the front office as well expected out of him. Just he has flashes of greatness, flashes of what he can do in an Atlanta United uniform, but he just has not been able to put it together consistently, which is the most frustrating part about what he has been able to not offer really for Atlanta United. Wing play, Sabalo Janitsa had a terrific season last year. I think he's done 0 goals this season, so he's dropped off tremendously. They've tried Almiron on the wing, and he hasn't had the impact that has been expected of him over there. Of course, he played wing at Newcastle, but question is, why is he not playing number 10? Why is he not playing at the position that he was so adept at in 2017 and 2018? So that's been the question that we've been asking ourselves. You mentioned the defense. Yes, Stian Gregerson is on a contract of $900,000 this year, but like you said, hasn't seen the field. So one of the things we're kicking around is, is it worth Atlanta United just buying him out and just looking for another option at center back? They, of course, have Enia Mihai coming in. Should be available for selection on Saturday, but as far as Stian Gregerson is concerned, what do you do with him? Derek Williams, his form has dipped tremendously in 2025. You have Luis Abram, who's on a very high contract as well. He's been okay, but not performed to the contract that Atlanta United have paid him. His contract is up at the end of the year. Outside backs, Pedro Amador has dropped off from last year. He came on fire last season, big part of what they did at the end of last year. Brooks Lennon, another player whose form has dropped off. We're mentioning perhaps fringe U.S. men's national team player a couple of years ago when he had his best season. He's been anything but that in 2025, both defensively and then the attack. I could sit here and talk about all night about what's gone wrong with this team, but those are just some of the highlights. Midfield's not been consistent as it needs to be. Bartosz Slisz has had tremendous success over the past few weeks, but Tristan Mullin-Bob not so much. He's very up and down. Jay Fortune has been tremendous, is injured for the rest of the year. Mateus Klick just got waived. So you're seeing little by little the groundwork being laid for 2026. I mentioned Mihai. You have potentially center back coming in on loans from Getafe and then you have perhaps another midfielder coming in, Alzate from Hull City, and that's pretty much in the works. Tom Bogert is saying so. Pretty much 2025 is in the books. There's no chance of playoffs. Now it's time to look forward to 2026 for your Atlanta United fan, I think.
TR says Nico was on Fox saying that Atlanta United is interested in Pedro de la Vega, I'm assuming, which I hadn't heard that rumor. That's kind of spicy, but
yeah, that's new to me too.
Your TR's dropping bombs in chat. Like, it just, I guess Nico, my co-host for Lobbing Scorchers Kickoff, technically was the one who did that. What's up, Mark? Thanks for popping in, man. Sydney, I got to get your take next on the Ronnie Dyla situation because, well, first of all, to me, it's like reflective of a lot of the similar situations that have happened with Atlanta United, where if you just look at it on paper and the theoretical odds of it working out, it makes sense at the time in the moment. I think Ronnie Dyla is a hire that falls in that category. And a lot of the players that they've signed, I always think at the time, I'm like, oh, okay, I see why they did that. Or this guy clearly has pedigree, and he seems decently likely that he'll be an effective MLS player. And then for whatever reason, most times it seems it hasn't worked out. And Ronnie Dyla, again, when he was first hired, NYCFC MLS Cup winning head coach, has a proven track record in MLS, which is something that a lot of clubs look for when they're evaluating who to hire as a coach. And I'm curious how much of what's gone on with Atlanta this season you attribute to him, because from what I've heard, internally in the front office brass, they've at least been saying that it's not really to do with him. He's brand new. It's not really his team. But I think even with that taken into account, you could very credibly argue that he should have this team at higher than 0.87 points per game, even with the, I think what you were talking about with Almiron on the wing. To me, that's very clearly because they feel like they need Marinchuk centrally, right? Yep. And you can't really play them. You can't really play them together in that role without them kind of getting in each other's way and stuff.
Yep.
So and you also can't, realistically, the best lineup would probably be Almiron at the 10 and Marinchuk not even in the 11, right? But what do you could Ronnie Dyla have done anything differently, first of all? And then second of all, is he on the hot seat? Because I know they're saying that he's not, but also, if you're at below 1 point per game for an extended period of time in this league, you're gonna be on the hot seat one way or the other. So how do you size up that situation?
Yeah, so based on what Chris Henderson said today in training, it sounds like Dyla is the head coach, at least for the first part of 2026. This season hasn't gone according to anybody's plan, and I don't think Ronnie Dyla's hands are completely clean in that regard. I mean, you mentioned Marinchuk, do you make the tough choices? And like you said, just bench Marinchuk because unfortunately the attack hasn't been up to par with him on the pitch outside of maybe a couple of matches. Again, it goes back to, we've seen what Miguel Almiron can do at the number 10. Why is he still playing out wide? Yes, I know he played there in Newcastle, but as a manager, you have to put your players in the position to succeed, right? And earlier in the season when he was asked about it, he didn't know that Almiron played at the 10 for Atlanta United, back in their glory years of 2017 and 2018. So he got into a little bit of a contentious exchange with Henry Higuita. But things like that are the biggest thing that has soured him among the Atlanta United fan base. Now, any coach not named Tata Martino or heck, even Rob Valentino is going to be looked at as, with a sideways glance, right? I feel like Rob Valentino bought a lot of goodwill based on what Atlanta United did in the playoffs. That being said, I don't blame the front office for saying, hey, we want to bring in a proven head coach, someone who's won MLS Cup, someone who has had a track record of winning. So I don't blame them for bringing in Ronnie Dyla over giving Valentino the permanent job, sort of similar to what the Sounders did with Schmetzer when Siggy Smith was let go. Back 2016, I believe that was.
Yeah,
something like that. But yeah, I feel like some fans were thinking, hey, it's going to happen the same way, and Rob Valentine is going to lead this club to greater heights. Of course, they bring in Dyla. Starts out okay, but then just kind of dive bombs from there. But that's a long way of saying, again, he is coming back for 2026 based on what Chris Henderson has said. But when I look at so many players out of contract, so many players on option years for 2026, I'm expecting a fully remade roster going into the 2026 season with Dyla's fingerprints all over it. I mentioned Alzate. He played for Dyla at Standard Liège, and that deal's not final, but it sounds like, again, it's in the works. So that's a player that he's familiar with. I imagine other players that he's familiar with will be in the mix to come in perhaps in the winter transfer window. So I think the directive is, if you don't perform with the players that you have not hand selected, but you have had a hand in bringing into this team, let's say the first 10 or 15 matches of 2026, you're still not performing the way you're supposed to perform, I think the front office will have no issue with letting him go and turning the page and bringing in another manager.
that makes sense. And I think you're right. Like, they're going to give him this season and the beginning of next season and then assess it from there. It's a tough situation because you could argue the results merit moving on from him right now, but then that throws you into even greater flux, and you're back to square one with it, having to bring a new coach in and having to reestablish all this like continuity and them knowing the team and roster and they imparting their own identity and tactics, and it sets you back. But I'll give you my take on the Rob Valentino thing, which. I mean, you mentioned that, but so you're saying that there's a contingent of Atlanta United fans out there that are like, it should have been Rob Valentino. I'm
very vocal.
I'm in that contingent. I stand with that.
Really?
I'm in that contingent, and I'll tell you why. And it's because, in part, of what you mentioned about the success that I saw firsthand that the Sounders had with Brian Schmetzer in that exact situation, taking over as the interim head coach. I mean, he ended up winning MLS Cup that year, which was pretty insane. Rob Valentino took down Messi in the playoffs famously. So he didn't have as much success as Schmetz did, but my thing is that like, you can have proven track record, you can have name value, you can have pedigree, but like, when you're talking about a guy like Brian Schmetzer, you're talking about a guy who literally not one person on earth cares more specifically about the Seattle Sounders winning than Brian Schmetzer, and that manifests in how he approaches the job. Like, every decision he makes is like, he puts so much weight on it himself because of how much he has invested in it. And I think that is a big asset. I've seen how big an asset that can be for a coach. And when I looked at Rob Valentino, I saw a guy that would like sweat and bled for Atlanta United. Like, he cared a lot about that club. And that doesn't mean everything, but it does. I think vibes matter in these situations. Players respond to a guy that they know is invested in their success and, by proxy, the club's success. And I think you saw like the effect that can have in what Atlanta United did in the playoffs last year. I know like no one expected them to actually make a run even after they beat Inter Miami, but that was still a pretty impressive accomplishment. And I think they could have fully justified being like, he's earned a shot. Let's give him a shot and then see if they can kind of capture that magic, similar to how Seattle did. And I'll say I feel the same way about the situation that Sporting Kansas City is in right now, where they just moved on from Peter Vermees, and it's like a long time assistant, the exact same way that Schmetz was, but he's like Sporting KC through and through, and they're not going to give him the job. They're going to, and he's got them playing a lot better, by the way, too, but they're not going to give him the job. They're going to look around for like a more proven, bigger name, higher pedigree coach. I just kind of think that in these situations, that the right play might actually be just giving the interim guy a shot. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Yeah. But I genuinely think that there might be something to that. I honestly don't know if there actually is, but when I look at how it's worked out with Ronnie Dylo, where he's coming in from the outside, he doesn't maybe have that like that organic investment that Rob Valentino had. I don't know. Do you think there's anything to what I'm saying at all? Or are you pretty on the
no? It's a great point. It's a great point. And, going back to Schmetzer, he's been part of the Seattle soccer community for years, even before the Sounders MLS days. So I think in that regard, lining him up against Valentino is a bit of an apples to oranges scenario. But that being said, I definitely agree with you in that buy-in among Atlanta United players certainly looked like it was a lot greater than even when Pineda was coaching the team. Because I feel like with Pineda, great guy, as I'm sure you can attest, having covered him in Seattle for so many years, great guy, players coach through and through. But I think at the end of the day, he just lost the locker room. I think, to his detriment, he was maybe a little too nice, I guess, to really get this team to the heights that it needs to be. So I think his position with Atlanta United just became untenable last year. So Valentino, he had been in the building. He had previously been interim head coach after Gabriel Hunte was fired. Was it 2021? I mean, it's after COVID. I mean, everything runs together back then. But he kind of was the bridge between Hunte and when Atlanta brought in Pineda from Seattle. And he did an okay job. Fast forward 2024, and he did an okay job enough to get into the playoffs. I mean, they're a VAR call away from missing the playoffs altogether in 2024. I mean, Duncan McGuire scores for Orlando. It's ruled no goal, and Atlanta wins to get into the playoffs, and the rest is history. So maybe there's a universe where that doesn't happen. They miss the playoffs, and it's a whole other discussion. But I feel like if you base Valentino's success on just what he did, what Atlanta United did against Miami, it's okay, but is that sustainable throughout 34 games of the regular season? To that point, I definitely don't blame Garth Lagerwey for saying, hey, we need experience in here. We need a coach that has won MLS Cup, a coach that knows the league, has been around the league as a head coach for years, and Dyla was it. I mean, they approached Jim Curtin reportedly. Curtin turned them down. So I feel like that was the kind of coach they wanted, and Dyla was available. Well, actually, no, he wasn't available. He kind of came available to them at the right time. I think the timing turned out, and now he's in. But again, 2026, maybe 10 games in or so, is going to be really the telltale sign of whether he is exactly the right coach. Because again, he'll have many of the players that he wants in there versus players that have been here under previous coaches. So that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, I don't know if they were never gonna go with Rob Valentino, and honestly, at the time, I was. It's not. I can't sit here and say I was beating that drum at the time. Like you said, the Miami playoff win was an awesome accomplishment, like individually, but it didn't really change how the season went. Right. Overall, barely squeaking into the playoffs. So I get all that, but this is more just like, it's kind of just like a theory I'm working on, that in these situations, just trying the interim guy is the way to go. I swear, Sporting Kansas City, they're gonna overthink it. This guy is gonna have the team playing for the badge, and if they just give him a good roster, they'll probably be successful on the field again, and they'll have a guy who's like I said, sweats and bleeds for the club. But they're going to overthink it. They're going to give it to some guy who comes in from the outside, doesn't really know or care about the club, and it's not going to go as well. So, again, I don't know. I could be totally off base, but it is something that both Atlanta United and Sporting Kansas City seasons this year have me thinking about. Sydney, you got a viewer question from chat for you here. From Bad Sequels, wants to know, what's the fan base's thoughts on Brad Guzan, goalkeeper? Do they love him? Are they tired of him?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who do you ask, right? If you ask one part of the fan base, it's like he should have been gone yesterday. You ask another part of the fan base, You look him as a club legend, as he should. Yes, he should. He's been this club's longest term captain, has been the captain pretty much ever since Michael Parkhurst retired from Atlanta United. He's been around since not day one, but halfway through 2017. He's the only constant on the first team that has been there since the 2017 season. So I think overall, though, there's a sense that, with him being out of contract, with him being 41 years old or close to it, I think there's a prevailing notion that this is his last season with Atlanta United. Now, he could say, hey, I think I have one season in me. I think that I want to give it a run with another club in MLS. Who knows? But I think there's, again, a prevailing notion that this is it for Brian Guzan. And again, he's a club legend. He's been with the club for years, been with the U.S. men's national team, had success overseas in the Premier League as well. So his body of work and his experience speaks for itself, right? Again, he's out of contract, and I don't really see LA United bringing him back for another year. Now, if you look at who they have as far as backup goalkeepers, if we want to have that conversation as well. So Josh Cohen is their backup, but he is dealing with injuries. So right now, Guzan's backup is Jaden Hibbert, super draft pick from a couple of years ago out of UConn, Jamaican international. So there's that parallels there with Andre Blake, Jamaican, went to UConn. So good track record based on that. Yeah. But Jaden Hibbert, by all accounts, looks like the potential number one keeper for Atlanta United. At this point in time, he got his first MLS start against Toronto FC a few weeks ago after Guzan fractured his cheek.
He did pretty good.
Yeah, he did. He did pretty good. I don't think the goals that he allowed can be attributed to him, but he commanded his area well. He looked good. He looked like he belonged. So in the world where maybe Cohen isn't signed to the roster, Hibbert is your number two keeper. Whether that means he is number one in 2026 remains to be seen. We've seen young keepers succeed in MLS coming out of not really the academy, coming out of the draft too. Chris Brady to some extent, Gaga Slanina, all throughout. Even Patrick Schulte, terrific young keeper. So there's definitely a track record of young keepers succeeding, and maybe Hibbert is it. Maybe he does pan out to be one of the top young keepers in MLS if they give him the job in 2026. My theory is they may bring in a veteran, maybe just for a year to continue to let him percolate and grow and develop in the system while they lean on a experienced but cheaper goalkeeper. And there's some names that you can bring in. I'm sure there'll be plenty of names on the free agent list that you can bring in if you want. So that's my theory of which way they'll go for keeper in 2026. But you have plenty of keepers in the Atlanta United 2 and the academy. One with Atlanta United 2 is Jonathan Ransom. He's being looked at as a future MLS goalkeeper. So that's a name maybe to take a look at in the future. But just tying it back to Guzan, I think his career is coming to a close, and it'll be very surprising if he's back in 2026 with Atlanta.
So you mentioned Chris Henderson earlier, which is obviously a name we know very well out here in Seattle. One of the key architects of all the success the club has had. Really, I credit him with as much as anyone, him and Garth, for getting this club to a point where they won CONCACAF Champions League. A lot of that was, there's a lot of credit to go around, but those two guys, in my eyes, get the lion's share of it for the roster building that they did here. But so you were saying that Chris talked at training today or yesterday or?
Yeah, today.
Today. Were you there?
Yeah, I was not there. I know Henry was there, on the Scarves and Spikes.
Did you see the interview though, or listen to the audio?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I'm curious, what is his demeanor right now? Like, how is he sort of framing? How did he frame how this season has gone? And did he give any inklings as to his temperature check with how it's going, or what he thinks needs to happen in the future for this team to get back to where they want it to be.
Yeah, he said, look, in 2 years, we want to compete for trophies. We want to add trophies to our case. And, that's always been the rallying cry for Atlanta United. We're a big club. We want to add trophies. But I think with a fresh set of eyes and Chris Anderson, who hasn't been here but 6 months, I think a lot of people kind of forget that.
Yeah.
He's not been here long. He wasn't here for much of the winter transfer window of 2024/25. So his experience, like you said, speaks for itself. And he strikes me as a person who won't tolerate losing. I mean, that's not to say that Garth Lagerwey will, but Henderson certainly won't. I mean, he's been involved with winning organizations, certainly Seattle with Lagerwey, Miami to some extent before, and right on the cups of, this Galacticos era that Miami's in right now. He's had some part of that. He's been around winning programs his entire career pretty much, and I don't think that he is happy by any stretch of the imagination, but if anything, it seems like he's been a little more aggressive. I mentioned Mihai is coming in at center back, Alzate perhaps an option at midfield, another center back perhaps coming in on loan from La Liga Dos that is being talked about as well. So the message is clear. I'm not happy with the defense, and that seems to be his priority in this window. Now, I think they have I think 3 roster spots open, and that's not counting the 2 players that I just mentioned who are not signed but have been reported in talks with Atlanta United. So if they bring those 2 in, they'll have 1 left, and then who knows what they do with the other one. Maybe bring in a winger. It's called that's needed a winger for years on the left-hand side. Saba's not going to get. You have Luke Brennan on the left. Behind him on the depth chart, he's looked good, but you need somebody above him on the depth chart and continue to let him develop. So you need a left winger. I think, for what it's worth, Garth Lagerwey has been sort of persona non grata in the LA United fan base.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, really. No, he has. He has amongst some fans. Others are willing to give him benefit of the doubt. I think some fans have said, you know what, we're not happy with the direction of this club under Garth Lagerwey, which little silly 3 years in. And, certainly our thoughts to Garth, obviously, his diagnosis that trumps every single thing, that trumps soccer. And, we just hope that he's able to beat this disease. But, if you look at Chris Henderson, I feel like is focused. He is willing to do what it takes to get this team better. There are still some holes that they need to fill. So I think, this part of the window, this window is all about chemistry, is what he said a few weeks ago on the radio. These next 2 windows are all about chemistry. So this is the forerunner of things to come. I think the big window will be the winter. We have so many players out of contract on options for next year. You have some big decisions to make. And I think this front office, I would think won't be afraid to make the tough decisions to get this team better.
Oh, I'm expecting a full-on roster blow up and kind of just like a whole new team next year. Which it's unfortunate that it's come to that, but I think there is some excitement in that. Is there not?
Yeah, and I'll say this just real quick. I have a kind of a feeling that Garth felt it'll be a little bit easier than it's been, so to speak. I mean, I felt that he thought, certainly Miranchuk would be a top performer in MLS. He hasn't. Saba, Lubjenica, Tristan Muyumba came in, were terrific to start their Atlanta United careers, have dipped in form. Pedro Amador had a great last season after he came in as a free transfer. Has been, hasn't had the same impact in 2025. So I think he came in saying, you know what, I brought in these players. We're going to be top 4. We're going to be a much better team. And it kind of hasn't panned out. So I don't want to use the word naivete for a person like Garth that's been around MLS for years and that's forgotten more about soccer than I'll ever know in my entire lifetime. But I think part of it is, the question is, his preference for prime aged players. It's a time to kind of back off of that. It's kind of my question and the question some have had. And, if it's the star he hitches his wagon to, that's fine. If the team succeeds, that's perfectly fine. But do you need to kind of look outside of that and say, let's take a chance on maybe some younger players? Let's take a chance at some players outside of that prime age group that we know can add a veteran presence to this team. So that's what I'm looking for over these next couple windows.
Yeah, with Garth in particular, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, like his role, he's CEO. Like it goes so far
Right.
beyond just
Yeah.
building the roster day in, day out, which
Yep.
now they have Chris Henderson doing that. But like as for the idea of him ever being on the hot seat, like some fans might have been saying, like you were saying, it's just it's not even like that's not even really his job anymore. He's like the business guy, even more than he's the roster builder. Zach has another viewer question for you in the chat. Is Garth building up, investing in the Atlanta Academy? Yeah, the state of Atlanta United's youth development. Oh, I know a lot of homegrowns are getting in games this year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and probably more because Atlanta's playoff hopes are gone, and probably more due to injury. But I think Academy is a major focus of Garth. I mean, he brought in Javi Perez, a very good evaluator and developer of talent in the youth system. So he knows a lot, Perez does, about developing young players, building up young players through the system. And he's put together a pretty sound methodology of what that would look like from academy, the youngest parts of academy, all the way up to the first team. And I feel like that's not fully implemented, but it's pretty close to being implemented. So that's Javier Perez's job. I think that's a very key hire that Atlanta United brought in to certainly help build up that academy. And I mentioned Jonathan Ransom. He is an academy player, getting time with Atlanta United too. Interested to see when he affects the first team. Other players like Jay Fortune, who I just mentioned, who obviously has been here since long before Garth got here, certainly in the academy. Luke Brennan, who I just mentioned. Will Riley, academy player, went to Stanford, very good college program, and then came back, got a homegrown deal with Atlanta United. So he's another part of that. Efraim Morales, who got traded to CF Montreal just the other day, under their academy product. So academy has always been a priority for Atlanta. Sort of the ideal use case is Caleb Wiley, who's with Watford. I think he just resigned on loan with Watford. So Wiley is one. You thought you had one in Bello, but maybe he was rushed a little bit. Maybe he got himself in not a great situation with a team that ultimately was, I think, relegated. But Bello certainly was another player that came out of the academy that performed tremendously. So I think academy, yes, is always a main focus. But what I want to see, and Ronnie Dial has said, I want young players. I want players out of the academy. I want these local players to be a part of this Atlanta United team. I think Garth Lagerwey shares that sentiment. I think Chris Henderson shares that sentiment as well. What I want to see is these younger players get more consistent minutes outside of injuries, outside of, hey, just being stuck in the final 15 minutes. So who's that next young player to break out for Atlanta United? Certainly Jay Fortune is another player who I've mentioned numerous times. He's on an option next year. Do you sign him to an extended period of time? I think you do. Luke Brennan, do you sign him for an extended period? I think you do. And then you just go on down the line. Don't be so quick to sell these players. Don't be so quick to get rid of them. Really invest in them. Really give them more responsibilities with the first team. I want to see more of Brennan. I want to see more of Chonky, who's also in the system as well, who has first one to start earlier in the season. So, yeah, academy has always been a priority for Atlanta. Getting them getting as many players as they need to into that first team setup has kind of been a challenge. And I think part of that was why some people were frustrated with the trading of Morales, because here's a kid that came in, looked good in his first team time. Due to injury, he came in, but now he's traded to Montreal. So there's frustration around, why didn't you hold on to him? Why are you more concerned with signing somebody from the outside? So I do think it's a priority. I think it will continue to be a priority, the academy.
That the Morales trade was the next thing I was going to ask you about on this topic, and then we can talk about the game a little bit, and then I'll let you go. Thanks for giving us so much of your time at this late hour in the state of Georgia. What did you think of the Morales trade? Because when I saw that, I was kind of like, what, that kid was doing pretty good. Like he got owned for a goal in his last game before he got traded. But like, other than that, like he was, I thought more than holding his own. And it just seems like the type of player that, like you said, they should be trying to foster and bring up and give a bigger role to. And like, maybe you have a future building block there that's a homegrown that, doesn't count against the cap and all that. So where did you fall on like whether they should be, I don't know if I was in their position, I don't know if I'd be training any homegrowns right now. I would be just running them out there and seeing who could be a part of the future.
Yeah, I think, if you look at the center backs, I think there's always going to be an odd man out with Mihai coming in. You still had Gregerson, you still had Williams, you have Noah Cobb, who we want to see more of in the first team, but he's kind of been stuck in Atlanta United too. So I think Morales has kind of leapfrogged him on the depth chart and done well. When he left against Charlotte, the team's form just completely dipped, and it's a little bit troubling when 21-year-old comes out with, just was it 5 or 6 MLS appearances, a little bit more than that under his belt, and the team kind of falls apart defensively. So a little bit troubling, but Morales was a tremendous player. Bolivian international. Been playing World Cup qualifying matches with Bolivia as well and CONMEBOL. So definitely has that experience. I think, given that, and given the time that he has played with Atlanta over this past few weeks, I think, Montreal, as they're looking to rebuild their team and dropping, notification at 5 a.m, hey, we're looking to turn a new page, a new chapter for us in Montreal. So they brought in Morales as sort of part of that setup, part of sort of the rebuild of what they want to do in the future. So definitely wish him well, wish him nothing but the best. Kind of puzzling why they made the move now. I think, again, why not sign him to a longer-term deal? But from the standpoint of, Mihai coming in and perhaps another center back coming in, it becomes a little bit understandable. But again, you want to see your younger players kept in, but at the same time, you want a more proven, more veteran player back there. So I guess in that school of thought, I do understand it. And the fact that you have several center backs already in the fold, especially with Mihai coming in, I definitely understand that as well. But part of me wishes he would have been kept around for a little bit longer.
City, looking at this game on Saturday, Seattle is heading to Atlanta. How are you kind of looking at these games right now? Like, are you concerned with results at all, or is this more of a situation where you're looking more at individual performances and trying to get evaluations on who should be on this team next year, who could maybe be a building block for the future? Like, is that more the lens that you're looking at a game like this through, or are you still in the mode of like a win could maybe turn the vibes a little bit, if nothing else, even if it doesn't mean like a run back into the playoff contention? Like, are the 3 points still even in consideration here, or is this just like evaluatory time?
Yeah, no, I think it's kind of both. I think, you're looking for players to not just fold up and quit because you're pretty much out of the playoffs, because you don't want that. You're looking for players to continue to play for the badge, play for the fans, and play for really their job next year, if you want to say that too. So yes, I think a little bit is evaluating performances, but I think a little bit is, hey, maybe we don't make the playoffs. Maybe we don't get ourselves into the postseason. Let's at least end the season on a high note and give fans something to be positive about in a really negative season. You have Leagues Cup coming up. I mean, you've never won a match in Leagues Cup. Atlanta hasn't. So I have no illusions of them winning the tournament, but maybe Leagues Cup can be maybe a competition where they say, hey, let's win a couple of games in the group stage. Let's get out of there for the first time and then go into the knockout stages and whatever happens, and maybe get maybe a little bit of a run. And if you lose, maybe in the quarterfinals or whatever it be, the first round of the knockout stage, that's fine. At least you give it a good run. At least you give it a good showing. So again, not saying they'll win because they're not going to win, but maybe that's something you throw all of your eggs at this case, because top 3 teams get a Champions League spot, and hey, stranger things have happened. But at the same time, I think, you're evaluating performances. You're seeing who wants to be here. You're seeing, again, if players just fold up the tent and say, hey, we have nothing to play for. Let's just play out the string. Let's just go through the motions, which is, what we've seen, I feel like, from some players. They just kind of go through the motions. They know they're getting paid a lot of money, and they're just kind of going out there punching in and punching out. You're seeing the younger players, though, really rise to the occasion. Play with nothing to lose, play with pride, play with passion. And I just wish more Atlanta United players took that mindset. So to answer your question, kind of both. Looking toward players who, may need to have some performances, but then again, just taking a look at what next year could have in store for this team.
I think it's a good point about Leagues Cup. Like, if I was in a situation where I was way below the playoff line, like Atlanta or like the LA Galaxy, I would look at a tournament like, you see teams do this with Open Cup, like Sporting KC. I think, was it last year where they were just terrible in league play and then made it all the way into the final. I think DC United famously won Open Cup in 2013, in the year where they were one of the worst league teams like in MLS history. So like, tournament soccer can kind of be like the form of your team, how good your team is, can sometimes not take effect as much as it does like throughout the course of a whole league season, when it's just like one set of games. As for this game, like from a Seattle side, like, on one hand, I'm kind of licking my chops from the perspective of, well, like, just specifically with this matchup, Seattle's attack is on fire right now. They've scored 3 goals in 3 straight games, and they're going up against a team that has struggled a lot defensively this year. So on one hand, I'm like, all right, this is like a good matchup to try and keep that going. On the other hand, like, a road game against a desperate opponent that, I mean, like, maybe there's a couple of vets. I know the fan base thinks a couple of these vets on Atlanta have checked out, but guys are playing for jobs. Young players are playing for roles. So regardless of whatever quality disparity or matchup advantages there might be for Seattle, it's never easy going on the road on a road trip this long against a desperate opponent that, I mean, I fully expect Atlanta to be coming after Seattle. And for as much as the results haven't gone their way, there have been times where Atlanta has played well in attack, like kind of in flashes and spurts, but it has happened, and they're going to be desperate. Is that sort of the dynamic that you're expecting in this game, or from the average Atlanta United game, where like the hunger of playing for jobs and livelihoods and playing for roles is kind of what like goes into the psyche of the group for a game like this?
You would think so. But again, like I mentioned, it's clear some players have checked out, and that's unfortunate. I think Seattle will kind of switching gears to, certainly Atlanta though too, but Seattle, they'll be thinking about last year when Atlanta came into Lumen Field and won 2-0. So I'm sure that will be, I mean, that was a couple years ago. I'm sure they'll be in the minds of Seattle fans. They'll be in the minds of some Atlanta fans. So I think Atlanta would be looking to guard against that. knowing that, hey, maybe there's a little bit of revenge at play if you're a Seattle Sounders player. But I think you understand that, hey, we've been at a really good run of form as far as the attack is concerned. We're fourth in the West. Yes, we're flying across the country. I think they got in on I think they got in tonight, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
Either
they flew
tonight or
out today.
tomorrow.
They flew out today.
Okay. So you're still dealing with jet lag. You're still dealing with time change and all of that. But I think if you're Seattle, you can say, hey, 2023, Atlanta United came and beat us 2-0. I mean, let's do the same thing at Mercedes-Benz Stadium and drive even further stake into the coffin that is the Atlanta United 2025 season. Again, though, I would like to think that Atlanta will meet the occasion. They haven't met it so many times this season. And yeah, if you're a Atlanta fan, that's unfortunate. But hopefully, with in a funny way, maybe with the pressure off, so to speak, maybe knowing that the playoffs are really not a possibility at this point. Maybe it takes a little bit of the pressure off. You were able to play a little more free. You're able to play a little more relaxed in that case. You have Leagues Cup coming up starting on Wednesday against Nakaha at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So maybe thinking about that. You can look at, hey, if we win this, we go into Nakaha, the match against Nakaha on a pretty good high. And then maybe, who knows, bring a couple of wins together against Nakaha. Maybe, I think Pumas they play in Orlando, and then Atlas, who of course is coached by Gonzalo Pineda. So maybe you beat Seattle. Maybe you're able to put together a couple of good results together, and give a pretty good account of yourselves in the Leagues Cup, where you haven't been able to do that over the past few years.
Zach says 92 degrees on Saturday, 80% humidity. That doesn't sound pleasant, but isn't the Benz like enclosed?
The roof will be closed, I'm sure, on Saturday.
All right, thank God.
I don't think we have to worry about the humidity or heat.
Every team that has extreme elements like that, I mean, 80% humidity, that sounds like my hell. Any team that has extreme elements like that should have to have, like, I've been to a couple MLS Cups in Toronto in December. It's like a joke. Like, you can't play soccer in that. They did it twice, but it's like, it's especially I mean, both of them really is the coldest I've ever been, but especially the 2016 one. It was just like, oh my God, this is a survival test. This isn't even a soccer game. Sydney, that is all I had for you this evening. Thanks again so much for hopping on. We went almost like an hour here, so appreciate you going in deep in the weeds on Atlanta United, a topic again that I've followed very closely this season. So it was interesting getting your take on what's actually going on in the day-to-day and in the future of the club. Before you head out, is there anything that you guys are working on or wanted to plug, or if you want to let our audience, we got a little more people watching now, if you want to let our audience know where to find your stuff?
Yeah, I stand corrected. By the way, Carlos saying it's Necaxa, so I stand corrected on the pronunciation. So apologies to Necaxa fans out there. But yeah, like I said, we're at scarvesandspikes.com. That's where you find all of our Atlanta United written coverage, analysis, opinion. Obviously, with the transfer window open, we'll be all over that. Any rumors, any reports of potential players coming in to the team, we'll be talking about that. Scarves and Spikes, we're live. Wednesday nights, we're live. Saturdays before matches, we're live. Sundays, the day after matches. Monday is our MLS Focus show. So we have that going on. That, of course, is available on YouTube via replay anytime you want, or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or iHeart if you want to listen to the audio. And then again, I'll just plug my socials. I'm at SHWrights on X, shrights.bsky.social on Blue Sky, and then again at sidh.soccer on Instagram and Threads. So that's where to find me. And then again, we're at Scarves, the letter N, Spikes on X, scarvesandspikes.com on Blue Sky, and then Scarves and Spikes everywhere else.
Everyone in chat, go toss Scarves and Spikes a sub.
Yes.
Show them the support. Sydney, thanks again, man. We'll get you back on at some point. If you guys ever need me for anything, just hit me up. Happy to collab more, and take care. Looking forward to this game on Saturday.
Me too. Thanks, Ari. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. See you. That was Sydney Hunt, Scarves and Spikes. Great Atlanta United YouTube show and podcast. Appreciate the time from him. Atlanta United week, always a big week for me personally, as someone who, as an honorary follower on the Atlanta United beat. I was thinking, is it the club that I watch and follow the most other than Seattle? It's one of them. I follow like all the big dogs a lot, Inter Miami, Columbus. Watch a lot of Cincy. But like there's something different about like following a downfall, Zach, thank you so much for the $1.99 super sticker. Getting the super chat train going. First one of the night. Appreciate you, man. All right. Other than that, I'll bust out the lineup builder right now. If you guys got anything else you want me to hit, go ahead and drop it in chat. Might call it a little bit early tonight. Sometimes I go like 2-3 hours on these. Might go more like an hour and a half tonight. But if we get the discourse flowing and we're vibing, maybe I'll stay on a little later. But right now, planning on going an hour and a half. We'll do a lineup builder. Maybe we'll hit this Schmetz sound and see where it takes us. TR says apparently no Ohio is still in play. I hadn't heard the last I heard on that was that they were doing the asking for way more money than they know the other club will pay type negotiating. But sometimes that's just a tactic. So I haven't been considering it fully chalked yet. I haven't. But I would say in general on the no Ohio thing, I'm trying not to get too like any signing like that, I feel like is a pretty big dart throw. And if it works out, great. But I like having now gone through the list of names and dove into U22 hit rates and stuff, the most likely outcome for a player of that profile and price tag is like a Leo Chu adjacent outcome. That's how I see it. But if you play your cards right and you scout it up right, like a lot of clubs, or not a lot, a few clubs in the league have clearly figured out how to do it. The Portland Timbies being one of them. Say what you want about the Portland Timbies. They can scout up these U22s. That's like one of the main things they can do. So it can be done. Seattle specifically not had much success that way to this point. But that doesn't mean that it's impossible. No Ohio could, if they do get him, he could come here and be a very good player. I'm definitely not discounting the possibility. Does Paul work on the right with De La Vega on the left? I think so. I feel like Rothrock has played on the right. Has he? Maybe I'm wrong about that. I feel like he could. Yeah, I agree with that. Like if it's a dart throw, they need to actually throw them. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it because it's a low hit rate. I'm just saying that as far as like what my expectations are of it actually hitting, I'm not like super confident in that. But yeah, you absolutely do need to throw the darts. Just interested in the fact that the Sounders are actually considering spending money. I know. I mean, for a broke entity. But that's the thing. Like, I guess what I'm saying is like, it feels like to really meaningfully increase your odds of a signing like this hitting, it's like go big or go home. When you start doing the $2 to $3 million price tags, it just makes it a lower percentage game. Just wanted to come here and say, after 15 years of following the Sounders from Virginia and then California, I finally got to go a game in Seattle, no less, this past weekend. Didn't disappoint. Hell yeah. That's awesome, Chris. That's sick that you finally got to experience it in person. It's a whole new ballgame, isn't it? And that was a good one to go to. It was like an exciting end-to-end, lots of goals. So you got a good one to go to, but happy for you that after that long, you finally got to go. That rocks. Any $15 million players we can get on 6-month loans with options to buy. Okay, I mean, let's talk about that. You're referencing Rodrigo de Paul, I'm assuming. Which Noah and I talked about this on a recent show as well. He's perpetuating their cheating narrative, which I get. I mean, anytime Inter Miami does some shit like this, people are going to be tilted and people are going to accuse them of cheating, and it is annoying. My only devil's advocate is like any team with 3 DPs on the books could technically do that. If Seattle, like, let's just take Seattle as an example. They have 3 DPs right now: Jordan Morris, Albert Rusnak, Pedro de la Vega. Say Rodrigo de Paul was like, I really want to go to the Seattle Sounders. And then I guess for this hypothetical, say that Rusnak, or one of the DPs, Rusnak, for example, was coming off the books in the winter, like Sergio Busquets is for Miami. Seattle could bring him, Rodrigo de Paul, in on loan with a purchase option, and then move him to DP status when Rusnak was off the books. They could do that. Like, could they not? The thing is, Inter Miami is just playing a fundamentally different game because of Messi and the Barca boys. That's the only reason Rodrigo de Paul at age 31 would want to go there, is to play with his boy. That's it. He's not gonna like. So, like, to me, it's like they would be stupid to not leverage that and like stack every world-class player that they can with that as the leverage. Like, would I do anything different if I was in their situation and had the ability to do it? Similar with JP, but I would even say, like, you see kind of loopholes. Like, it is a loophole. It is a loophole, but I don't know if it's nefarious or I have yet to, I'll say this. I have yet to see like actual evidence that it's outright against the rules. And it is a loophole, but there's a difference between a loophole and like what they did. Remember when they had 5 DPs and Blaze in the famous Blaze Montevideo days, and then they still like almost wooden spooned? That was cheating. That was like proven cheating. This is a loophole that theoretically any team in there with their roster build could do. It's just that no other team, like I said, they play a different game than everyone else. No other team would have the opportunity to bring a player like in like that. But I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, if I was running their team, I would do that different. Maybe that makes me an apologist. I try to be fair about these things, or like, unless I see like, if I see concrete evidence that it's cheating, then I will take that as it comes. But to me, it looks like they just did a loan with a purchase option. It just happens to be on like a world-class player that they can only attract because they have Messi and the Barca boys. LAFC is supposedly getting Son. So that would be, I mean, I already saw like some Sounders people or Sounders fans being like, see, like, LAFC is doing it again. Where's our ambition? Which Okay. Like I even said earlier this season that signing a big name like that would be good for morale for Seattle. You just don't. Those things are not as guaranteed as it's made out to be. I think Stone in particular seems like he has a lot of gas left in the tank and could be a great player in MLS. This is the same team that just did the Olivier Giroud experience. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I try and every time I see another club bring in like name chasing like that, it's not always as like slam dunk a situation is as you might think. Like sometimes, like Giroud won the World Cup with France and then went to LAFC and couldn't get a goal. What is it about MLS where the high spenders don't run the league? Is it as simple as players 4 through 11 are more important than the top end? It's because spending a lot is, I think, an element of being successful, but it's not the element in the way it is in global footy where you don't have salary cap. Salary cap league is about having elite top end talent, which oftentimes requires big spending, most of the time requires big spending. Beyond that, it's about finessing that cap, finding value, having good youth development, having homegrown players actually meaningfully contribute, finding distressed assets, getting more production from spots on the roster than what you're paying for it. Those are the teams that win stuff. It's not Toronto FC when they go get Insigne and Bernadeschi for however millions they spend on them. Or as we just talked about, Atlanta United with Miguel Almiron and Latte Loth, 30 plus milli. Where to get him? You know, like it. And then by the same token, you have a team like the Philly Union. What's their biggest ever transfer fee? And, you know, I know they're like the quintessential Moneyball finesse the cap. Homegrown reliant type team. And yeah, you could say that their trophy haul, which is none other than the shield they won in the COVID year. People point that out to be like, oh, well, the Philly Union, that's an example, like moneyballing can only get you so far. To me, it's like they were a freaking Gareth Bale miracle, which you could say, okay, that was name chasing paying off for LAFC. But like Philly played them straight up and could have won that game. That was a championship caliber squad they had that year. They had a plus 48 goal differential that year, spending like probably 25th most in the league, if that. When Dempsey showed up, it was like a dream, and it's been strange to see us not pursue a talisman style player, someone you can build a mentality around. That is what it feels like we need. I think that is it's an interesting point as far as when you want to talk about a talisman that you can build a mentality around. I cannot think of a better one than Nicolas Ladero. He was the definition of it. I would argue the Sounders signed the best player of that exact ilk in MLS history, and I would cite the trophy case he accrued as evidence of that. However, I think it's fair to say, like, have they really had that since then? That standard setter, that leader, that guy who comes in every day and makes sure that the level is what it needs to be. That's what Nico Ladero did every single day. Do they have that right now? Maybe not to that degree. Like Rusnak, I think, is a very good, very productive DP. Is he like the leader, the mentality, the build around mentality guy like Ladero? No, but like that's just so hard to find. A guy who does that stuff to the effect of Nico Ladero. It's so hard. It's so hard to find. And I think to whatever extent they haven't replaced it, I still think it's a team that has like good leadership within the locker room. Guys that do make sure that the standard is high. And I think Rusnak is a little underrated in that way, perhaps. He's very respected within the locker room. He is one of the leaders on the team. He's the centerpiece of the offense. Nico Ladero is just he's kind of 101. I was around that guy a lot. That was like on the days where I was on the beat every day. And it was you could tell. I've told this story before, but I was at a media mixer event the night before the CONCACAF Champions Cup in final in Seattle, and they're playing Pumas. The first night I ever met Noah, actually, at that event. We were all hanging out, tossing back a few, talking about how we thought the game was going to go the next day. And I was talking to a Sounders official, and I was like, how do you think this is going to go tomorrow? You think you guys are going to win? And he was like, oh yeah, we're going to win. And I was like, why? I mean, I hope you're right, but why are you so confident? And he was like, El Capitan. He's not going to let us lose. He's talking about Nico Ladero. Like, he's not going to let us lose. It just wouldn't happen. He's not going to. And then we all know what happened the next day. They beat the shit out of Pumas. Won CONCACAF Champions League. So to me, what it's going to come down to, like, what's going to define if this team has filled that void is if they can rack silverware in the post Nico era, which, to be fair, they haven't done that yet. They've been a good team. They almost made MLS Cup last year. I think they probably freaking win MLS Cup last year if they get by the Galaxy. I don't think the Red Bulls were coming here and taking that game. Maybe they would have. But if they got by the Galaxy last year, they would have had a great chance to win MLS Cup last year. They're top 4 in the West right now this year. It's looking like they're at least going to have a chance to make a run. They're contending. But like as far as like them pursuing like a talisman type player post Nico, it was supposed to be De La Vega. Like that's that was the swing that they took as far as like skill set on the field to try and lay a foundational piece for the post Nico Ladero era. And that aspect of it has not popped to this point, but we are coming off the first game of Pedro De La Vega's MLS career where he really looked like that. As far as like standard setting and leadership, I don't know. He's still a young guy. Maybe he needs more time on the team and more success on the team and in the league and stuff to like achieve that type of status. But as far as on-field talent, that is what he's supposed to be. That's what he was billed as. And I think for a lot of reasons that were beyond his control, that hasn't happened yet. But again, like I was watching that San Jose game and I was like, this is that. If this is the player that we all hope and want, that's what it's going to look like week in, week out. That's what it needs to look like. Maybe not that dominant, but like 70, 80% of that level. Girlfriend came to the game with me to not watch soccer, even mentioned unprompted De La Vega had a hell of a game. He was incredible. But it was awesome. It was kind of cathartic, wasn't it? Just to see that he's capable of having a game like that. Noah and I were talking about this on the pod. Go check out the pod that dropped today. We were going back and forth on it a little bit because he was doing the all right, it's just one game thing, which yes, it is just one game, and it only that performance against San Jose only means something if he sustains it. So that caveat is true. And he was also saying we've seen flashes from him before, and he hasn't sustained it. So we got to wait and see, like, if that was just a flash in the pan or if it's real. Which again, like, fair caveat. But I would argue, and I did argue when we were talking about it, what we saw in that game was different than the flashes that we saw before. This was a game where he single-handedly took over. He won the team the game. The whole team did play well. But he was I would say the primary reason that the team played that well. He created all 3 goals. On the first one, it was his pass to Obed that set up the Rusnak cross that Moose finished for the equalizer. Sneakily important play. Go back and watch the highlight if you haven't. That first goal was started by De La Vega. The second one was an awesome assist to Moose in transition. And then the third one was the best goal a Sounders player has scored all season. That's what a $7 million. That's the type of stuff a $7 million DP does. That's the type of stuff an impact player does. Moves the needle. Decides results in your favor by making plays, changing games. That was the first time we've seen him do that. And for me, there's there's a little weight off my mind just knowing that he can do that. Just knowing that it's possible for him to have that type of impact in a game was great to see. Yeah, I thought it looked real too. Wanted to hit this one. We don't need to go after big UR stars, but we should go after the Evanders, Pecks, and Bwangas of the world. I would agree that a player that's like explosive like that, like De La Vega, even if he does hit his peak potential, is he like the physical presence of a Peck or Bwanga from out wide? No. But if he's producing like them, then I don't need him to be like a freight train demon like Denny Bwanga. But I am of the opinion that Rusnak is underrated in these discussions. And while I understand that he's not as exciting as a player like Evander or Hani Mukhtar or Lucho Acosta in his day, the production that he offers you and his impact and the effect on the offense week in, week out, it's closer to the level of a guy like that than people give credence to. He's 17 goal contributions this year. It's not as many as Anders Dreyer. Like, still pretty damn good. What does Bwanga have this year? Bwanga has 13 goals, 7 assists. Rusnak has 10 goals, 7 assists. So that's sort of my point. Like, that there's actually not like that crazy a gap. I think this club should be able to have both. Yeah, no, I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, you know, you need like superstars to really feel like you're hanging with the elite clubs. You do. We'll see if De La Vega can become that type of player. Like, theoretically, when you spend as much money as they did on a guy. Maybe, like, you know, will he be like a 15 goal, 15 assist type superstar player? That would be the optimum outcome. But I don't know, like, to me, what it ultimately is a question of at the end of the day is, like, are you in contention? Like, is your team able to compete with the best teams in the league and win trophies? I think if this team plays up to its potential and you get a leap from De La Vega, I think you can. I think this team can win trophies. They can make a run. I think they can. Will they? Different question. And like, yeah, David DaCosta, I consider he and Rusnak like the same idea. I think that's actually a great comp. Portland had Evander, fumbled. He's now on FC Cincinnati. But then they went out and got DaCosta, who I guess I'm sort of a DaCosta truther. I think he's really good. He's just not as flashy and explosive as Evander. He's like Rusnak. He's like simpler, more technical, clean. He's not going to rack the stats that an Evander will. But I think you can win with a player like DaCosta as your centerpiece. I do. Our team is always great when we have a star supported by ballers. Papa, Vargas, Rusnak, Alonzo Morris raise the floor and the whole team rises. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think right now, if you're sizing it up, I mean, I think Rusnak is that guy on this team. Giroux, I was going up to find something else from chat I wanted to hit. Giroux got like 3 or 4 goals, all comps. That's what I'm saying, man. Okay, just on that topic, can we like be real and like honestly recall the discourse when they signed Giroux? It was a lot of, oh, look, LAFC is doing it again. What's Seattle doing? What's Seattle doing? Where's the ambition? They go out and get the French leading goal scorer in the history of the French national team. And Seattle trades for Jesus Ferreira. That was the discourse, was it not? Was it not? They got Olivier Giroud, we got Jesus Ferreira. People were saying that. I wasn't saying it, but people were saying that. How did that work out for LAFC? How did the Olivier Giroud experience go? How many goals? How many goals did they get for that transfer fee? Like 3 or 4. So, I mean, that is how these things work sometimes. This is what I wanted to hit from earlier from Papa Squat. I still think Kent is going to pop off at some point. I wanted to talk about this. Because it was ambitious. But that's sort of, I mean, we can go back to my ambition ratings from the beginning of the season. Like, ambition is great, but it doesn't necessarily equate to success. Spending $22 million on Emmanuel Latte Loth was ambitious. Bringing in Federico Bernardeschi and Lorenzo Insigne for Toronto FC, that was ambitious. You got to combine ambition with like getting the right pieces, the right players. Ferreira did only start scoring recently. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even mean that really as a comp between Ferreira and Giroux. Ferreira's got 3 MLS goals too. But when we talk about like, weight of expectations, Austin FC found that out as well. Exactly. I wanted to hit on the Ryan Kent point because I want to get something out there on that topic. I still have my stock. I know the stock is down. The agenda has tamped way down from the first couple games he was on this team, where he looked like the greatest player alive, the freaking Ballon d'Or candidate against St. Louis City and the Houston Dynamo. I know it hasn't looked as good since then, but I still have my stock, and I still believe he can be an impact player for this team. And my reasoning for that is, first of all, I believe in what I saw. The type of stuff he was doing in those games is not like, I don't think it's like he forgot how to do it. And that type of skill is like, can't really like, you can't fake that. So I believe in what I saw from that standpoint. But here's another thing I will point out. I was thinking about this. Here's another thing I'll point out. I know like the narrative right now is that he's been pretty much a zero since those first couple games, and on the stat sheet, that is true. I could name 3 or 4 instances over the last month or so off the top of my head where he made plays that like really should have been assists. I think most of you know what I'm talking about. Like at least 3 where he made great runs. He set guy. There was one in the Vancouver game that Alex whiffed on. There was one in the FC Dallas game where Georgie scored but was offside by 0.2 centimeters. That would have been another assist. There's at least a couple more instances where he did do the stuff that we saw in those first 2 games. He just didn't get the statistical payoff for it because of either, wayward finishing or an offside call. So just say even like 2 of those got converted. Maybe Alex converts the one in Vancouver. Georgie stays on side against Dallas. I think we're having a little bit of a different conversation. I think we're probably talking about like, it hasn't been as hot lately, but he's still been awesome so far. He had 3 assists in his first 58 minutes. He would be up to 5 if you give him even 2 of those. So I don't think it's a situation where he was creating all these super high quality, high percentage chances in the first 2 games and then just has never done that again. I think he has done it again like a handful of times, and it just hasn't resulted in a goal. So it's like, no one talks about it. But I think with Leagues Cup coming up, stretch run of the season coming up, I think he's gonna get his minutes. I know he hasn't really been playing that much lately. I think he's going to get his minutes, and I think eventually the quality is going to start to shine through again. I think they have to. We've talked a lot about like adjusting to how teams are defending him. I think they do have to do that because, yeah, he has had a few nice moments where he could have had some assists, but on the whole, teams have figured out how to suppress him from out wide by sending double teams and just generally not letting him be the one that beats them when he's on the field. So it's a game of chess. You have to evolve and adapt to that. But I still have my stock. It could be a bad take. Could age poorly. This could get clipped up at the end of the season. I'm fine with that. But again, I believe in what we saw in those first couple games. I don't think stuff like that comes out of nowhere. I don't think stuff like that comes out of nowhere, and I don't think that MLS clubs getting a couple games of film is going to fully neutralize him for the rest of his time on this team. Whether he's back next season will be an interesting question. When Paul Arriola comes back on the books, they would have to sell a player to make that happen. And I think realistically, like he'd have to pop off if it stays how it is now and he's just kind of like buried on the depth chart a little bit, not all that effective when he does play, then I doubt he's back. But who knows? We'll see. I think like people are saying in chat, like he's very clearly crazy talented. I do think that we can safely say that. I don't think it was just a flash in the pan. All right, I'm gonna bust this lineup builder out. We can talk about how Seattle's going to line it up on Saturday, and then I'm going to call it a night here. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. If you haven't done so yet, please like the video. Should have said that earlier. Everyone in chat right now. There's like 50 of you or so watching. Everyone like the video. Under the Lights, I get, it doesn't do as hot of stats as Kickoff or our post-game shows. But I think 50 likes is a reasonable ask. All right, lineup builder. Let's talk about how the Seattle Sounders are going to line up at Atlanta United. First of all, Paul Rothrock out for this game. Broken hand, surgery. So only out for one game, but it is going to be this game. I think either way, they would have ridden the hot hand here. Thank you, TR. Under the Lights is my favorite too, even though I always say it's like it's for the real ones. It's for the sickos who like to do stuff like go in way too in depth on Atlanta United. Yeah, Bree, he broke his hand in practice. It's not that serious. And he got surgery, but it's not that serious. Supposedly. It is not that serious. Schmetzer said he's basically the situation is he got the surgery and he can play with a cast. It's just a pain tolerance issue. So he's going to not be probably having all that much fun, but he will be able to play. This is the like default thing that Fought Mob had. This is just what they had. So I'm going through and changing it. Was not fighting someone. He took a tumble and he like fell on it. I think we're gonna get a Moose game. There has been talk about Jesus Ferreira playing more at the 9, and I think that is going to happen in situations where Moose has to rotate, which is going to happen. And I think Plan B will be Ferreira moving up top. I think for this game in particular, with Moose and De La Vega looking as good as they did against the Quakes, you run that back. That's what I think. Front 4 of De La Vega, Albert Rusnak, Jesus Ferreira, and Danny Masovsky. I like it. Sign me up. I'm pretty sure they just randomize it. I don't think they're actually like projecting, but I don't know. Maybe. The Roldan Vargas double pivot. You already know. That's going out there. Left back is interesting. Nico and I were projecting the lineup last week, and we put RBW starting, and then it did turn out to be J-Bell for the game that we were projecting for. I can't remember if that was I think that was the Rapids game. The Rapids game we projected RBW, and then it turned out to be J-Bell. I'm going to predict J-Bell. I think he is like the default option here. And I think Nuhu will be eligible. And, maybe we were debating this on the pod. Does Schmetz go right back to Nuhu? I think you got to make him like earn the starting job back in training and in substitute cameos. That's how I would do it, man. It's been too much. I've been the Nuhu defender. I've said that he gets disproportionately sandbagged in a lot of situations. he gets scapegoated. But like what we've seen the last few weeks with the red cards, the crash outs, the crossing the boundary between player and fan, potentially costing them a result in the Club World Cup that would have gotten everyone a bunch of money. It's too much. You got to bring him off the bench for a couple games, make him keep working hard in training, and then at that point, if he clears those hurdles, and you think the best thing for the team is to start him, then you start him. I don't think you start him. No, I think Reagan's good. He was suspended. The reason he missed that game is because he was suspended. So let's plug him in there. I think, unless I'm missing something, I'm pretty sure Reagan is good. Yeah, it was yellow card accumulation. And then, as much as I do love me some KKR, I'm gonna put Alex. And then, of course, it's gonna be Andy T with Steph Fry still in concussion protocol. So this is how I think they're gonna do it. That's how I think they're gonna do it, chat. This lineup should be able to at least take a result. I mean, really, man, I really think it should be able to. This should be able to win at Atlanta United. I know that I'm the one here who has watched by far the most Atlanta United this year. It's been a tough watch at times. A lot of times. I'm going with J Bell over RBW, Daniel, for my prediction. If it was me, I would probably run out RBW because that's a little more fun. You get a little more attacking threat there, and I think RBW he looked like, you know, for as much heat as he took in the Club World Cup, which I thought was stupid, but RBW, let's give him credit. All right. Let's give him credit. He had a good ass game against the Quakes. He didn't make any of the defensive mistakes, to my memory. And he is a very good attacking player. Like, he has the potential to be a very good modern fullback if he becomes even league average defensively. Left back has always been a little cursed, except in the Jovan Jones days. Take me back. What's Jovan Jones doing? Is he on a team? Call him up. But see, I think RBW, like Jovan Jones is a good theoretical comp for RBW. Like, I think that actually is. Like, if he, in theory, hits his upside. I was a Brad Smith guy. I know a lot of people thought that he was a liability on defense. But Brad Smith could send in a cross. Jones is playing in Trinidad for, not making this up, Police FC. Wow. Call him up. Last tour of duty with Jovan was brutal. Yeah, the homecoming was not sick. It was really only the 1 year. He had the 1 year where he had 11 assists. Trade for Jovan Jones was a masterclass. Yeah, no RBW, guys. I'm going J-Bell. I'm not going with what I would do or what chat would do. I'm going with what I think Schmetzer is going to do. And my read on it is that in a situation where all things are equal and he's on full rest without a short turnaround, is that J-Bell is his non-Nuhu first choice. Maybe because of the game that RBW had against the Quakes, they run him out. But also, I think what TR said, when you're on the road like this, you go with the defense first option. Try and keep the clean sheet as long as possible. RBW is the option when you're going like full blown attack, chasing goals. I don't think they're going to go into an Eastern Conference road game like that. Snyder Brunell, to my knowledge, is not on the team yet. They said that they were going to announce that and then didn't. So Sounders have been fleecing the Fire since 2016. Yeah, the Chicago Fire could have had Jackson Reagan. I think he was always trying to come back here, though. Anyway, yeah. This is a good 11. I like the 11. I'm excited to watch it like with a full week of rest. Hopefully the double pivot has their batteries recharged. And hopefully they can get a win going into the League's Cup break. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Get up to a nice even 40 points, solidify that top 4 spot. It's crunch time. All right, guys, I'm going to call it on that. 1 hour 50. Thank you all for tuning in, as always, to another episode of Lobbing Scorchers Under the Lights. Thanks to Sydney Hunte, Scarves and Spikes. Toss him a sub. Hopping on. Talking some Atlanta United, Seattle Sounders on Saturday. We're going to be doing the coveted like post-game show, call-in show right after the game. The home games, we cannot always make that happen. In fact, we pretty rarely can make that happen. But for these road games, it's not that hard. So we'll be jumping on, taking some calls, talking about whatever happens in this Atlanta game. Win, lose, or draw. Eric, thank you for closing us out with the $2 second super chat of the stream. We take it. They all add up. Appreciate the support, man. Thanks for tuning in, TR. Glad it makes the Thursdays better. Makes my Thursdays better, too. Hanging out with the sickos. Appreciate you guys. I will see you all on Saturday. Be there. Peace.
Some people come to Lumen Field for the tactics, for the soccer, the atmosphere. And some come for Paul Rothrock's hair. Me personally, I come for both, because I have agendas to push. Live soccer isn't just better, it's way more personal. From making friends to becoming the guy in your section that's just constantly yelling about advanced statistics. Get tickets to any Sounders match by visiting lobbingscorchers.com/tickets. You support the pod, our agendas, the vibes, and the chaos.